Right there, buddy. I'll put you on hold. All right, here we are Saturday night. Bill Boshear's ready to get with it if you are. This week is going to prove to be another one of those weeks in the making. Tonight, first of all, tomorrow at 10 a.m., you want to be at Channel 38. Lincoln Ware is going to have candidates on his program that you're not going to hear from in the mainstream media. Why, I don't know. Maybe it's financing, I have no idea. But they're going to be on Lincoln's show, and you'll get the chance to call in and ask them questions, which you should. If the other candidates won't show up, how are you supposed to know what they stand for? Oh, I saw a soundbite on television. That won't get it. This is too important. You need to vote. You need to vote on somebody. I'll tell you why it's so important. We're facing a crisis in this country that is bigger than Watergate. Online with me is my guest tonight, Jim Condon. We're going to be talking about something. Let's just bring him up there. Jim, are you there, sir?
Yes, Bill.
Jim, you have been, let me do this. You have been involved in vote. You have a website called votefraud.org. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Let me ask you a question. How safe do you think the elections are today?
Well, in 49 and a half states, all 49 states except for New Hampshire and even half of New Hampshire, we have no assurance whatsoever that the results they're giving us are true or false. In other words, everyone can verify this when they vote on Tuesday. If you stay around, you'll see the votes are taken from the people at 6:30, taken downtown, and they're counted by one of four major computer companies. In Hamilton County, we use Hart. There's also Diebold, Sequoia, ES&S, and Hart. Those four companies, Bill, count 96% of the votes in the country, and it's all done in secret. In other words, they hide the county officials and the state officials have allowed these four companies to take the ballots, hide them from the people, and then just announce the result. And the television stations, the five big TV networks in New York City, and the major stations simply announce the results as if they're unquestionably true. In fact, we have no idea whether they're true or false. If I had to guess, I would guess that I would not trust these four companies. They own the programs. No candidate, no press person, no citizen is allowed to look at the programs. So that's tells you right there that there's a tremendous temptation to warp the future of the United States. I might mention that a national lawsuit. Let me give just a little history so people can understand. Computers began to be imposed on the American people in 1973, but by 1988. They had perfected, they had imposed them on 49 and a half states. And half of New Hampshire, Bill, they still count the votes right. They keep the ballot box in the sight of the people all day. They open the ballot box at closing time, 7:30 or whatever, and then right there, citizens from all factions count the votes in the open. Some people are designated, and then anybody from any faction can watch. So that's the way it should be. You get the results a few hours later, and then you know that those are the results because the ballots never left the public custody. In the other 49 states and then half of New Hampshire, by 1988, they had consolidated this computers counting all the votes, and only four companies are the ones that they're given the contracts. In 96% of the country, again, these four companies count the votes. So guess what? Since 1988, we've had only Bushes and Clintons in the White House. And now they're telling us we love another Clinton. So you mean only two families in the United States are popular enough to be president? So I am afraid that we have some powerful groups who work through these four companies, and on the key national elections, they are in effect warping the future of the country. As the late Collier brothers, Jim and Ken Collier, wrote a book, and the title says it all, Vote Scam, The Stealing of America.
Jim Condon, my guest, stick around right there. We're going to take a pause in the action. We'll come right back. Jim, don't you go away. I'll put you on hold. We'll come right back with this. Folks, listen, this is way too serious. You need to be up on this. Stick around. We're back. Bill Boshears here in the Scizone tonight, Saturday night edition. If you will, my guest, Jim Condon, if you would like to check to see how serious this really is, if you'll go to Google and just type in voter fraud or vote fraud, you'll find somewhere like 1,800,000 cases or referenced. I think that's always a good number to take a look at of a topic that is popular. We're looking at a vote in this particular state of Ohio this coming Tuesday. I don't know where you are or if it's going to be a vote where you are. Jim, how easy is it to steal an election?
Well, under the current circumstances, when the county governments and the state governments have delegated all the counting to 4 private mega corporations, they own the codes. They get to take the ballots away from us at 6:30, as there was a case in Cincinnati in the 1980s, and a fellow who said he wiretapped elections was on the stand. He had the head of the Board of Elections at that time on the stand in Hamilton County. I believe the man's name was Mr. Jolly. He said, if you had the codes to the computers, would you not have a 100% chance of stealing the election? And the guy said yes. So these 4 companies have the codes. We're trusting them. Most people are that they're honest. But if you want to steal it, they got a 100% chance to steal the election.
Jim, during the presidential election, a friend of mine, who shall remain anonymous at this point, offered one of the delegates of the people who actually sit down and count or vote their conscience. He offered him money, and he said, yeah, I'll throw it. Come to find out, I checked into it, it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah, the penalties aren't what they should be in many cases. It varies from state to state.
Well, look what happened in the presidential election out of Chicago.
Right.
I mean, an absolute travesty. And if you think it didn't happen in Florida, so here's 4 companies in the United States who, let's take a look at this picture for tonight, folks. Take this. We got 4 companies who manufacture the machines. We're not allowed to see the code, nor is anybody else. We have to take their word for it that they didn't cut a deal behind the scenes and I'm not saying they did, but what if they did? How would you know it? You wouldn't. Obviously, they got a contract for several $1 million. Cuyahoga County spent, what, $22 million on machines or some number like that.
Right, and keep in mind with 3,000, there's 3,142 counties in the United States, Bill. So multiply $1 million by 3,132 of them that use one of these companies. Only 10 counties in New Hampshire don't use these companies. They hand count. So you're in billions of dollars here. You're in billions of dollars, not just millions. And many of these contracts, I was shocked. I've been fighting to get honest and open counts since 1979, but I just learned this year, a few months ago, from Professor Doug Jones, who was on a radio program following me, and I listened to him, and he said that increasingly counties and states have signed contracts with these companies that have a confidentiality clause that they're not even allowed to show the people of their state or county what the contract says. And he pointed out this was un-American and illegal, but still they have a lot of these confidential contracts going on, which tells me that there's something in there that neither party wants the people to see.
Jim, you mentioned earlier a lawsuit. There is a lawsuit pending. Network America, is that the one that's put it out? Who put this out? Well,
actually what happened was Bob Schultz of We the People Foundation, and people can look up on wethepeoplefoundation.org or on our website, votefraud.org. The big link at the top, they can click through and read the lawsuit. We're calling it the National Clean Elections Lawsuit. If a lawyer wanted to look it up, it's called Schultz versus the State of New York, because it was filed in New York. But all 50 states now have 3 plaintiffs. I think only 4 of them have 2 plaintiffs, but there's 147 plaintiffs nationwide from all 50 states that have filed this suit, and we're asking the court, and we're asking them to transfer it immediately to the Supreme Court because it's the first suit of its kind.
Well, Jim, let me ask you this. being that there's only 4 companies involved in this this debacle, what's the chances? Do we have a whistleblower anywhere?
Well, there have been whistleblowers. In fact, Bobby Kennedy Jr. came out with one of those whistleblowers and wrote an article in Rolling Stone magazine in October, November of 2006. There's also a movie that got on HBO called Hacking Democracy. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It was on,
as a matter of fact, it's on Google.
It's on Google. It's going to be on HBO again soon, and it was on about 20 times in October and November of 2006. And it's a documentary, 90 minutes, but it's really exciting to watch.
It's in parts on, I believe it's YouTube. I beg your pardon. It's YouTube.
10 parts there.
They've got parts there. Does Google have it in its entirety? They usually do.
I think Google does, although Google, sometimes YouTube's a little more stable, at least on my computer, so it might be easier to watch it in the 10 parts on Google.
I'll tell you what, you folks out there who want to see, I saw it. It is an eye-opener, let me tell you. We've got part of it here. We just couldn't have time. I wanted to get Jim in and get him, because Jim is local and watches this like a bird dog. Jim, I got to compliment you and your group for taking the helm at this.
Well, thank you.
It's not often you get a chance. And ladies and gentlemen, the telephone number's up on the screen, 381-3838. Jim, can you stick around and take some phone calls tonight?
Sure, if you want me to, I'll be glad to. Yeah.
And if you folks want to give Jim a buzz, jump in there. Let me ask you this. If the lawsuits prevail,
yes,
what will happen?
Well, the lawsuit is very simple. We're asking, first of all, our first position is that the counties and the states had no right to delegate our counting power to these companies. It's an unconstitutional delegation. So we didn't go after the companies in this lawsuit because if the states aren't allowed to hide the ballots from the people with these companies, then the companies all lose their contracts. So we're asking the court and ultimately the Supreme Court to say all elections would be hand-marked ballots, not punch cards, but hand-marked with a pen or a pencil when you're a candidate, hand-counted ballots, and the ballots can never leave the site or the custody of the people until they're counted and the results are posted.
Jim, let me ask you a question. Tuesday, people are going to go to the polls here in Hamilton County, and they're going to vote. How would they know if there was some hanky-panky going on? Is there something like I saw in the movie? The woman punched a name and it didn't show up.
Yes, and there's all kinds of proof of that too. There's proofs in various places where they got on video people punching one name and then the count showing up for the other person's name if it's a certain type of machine. That was in Louisiana. But no, it's all on blind faith. I vote in the west side of town, and last time they had the new Hart machines in, and I marked my ballot. And actually, the ballots we have are fine if they just kept them in the ballot box and we counted them at the end of the day, because now you can see the name. They're not like those stupid punch cards with the hanging chad. But then, if everybody will notice this in Hamilton County, then you go and you're putting something into an ATM machine. You then slide your ballot in, and then the little screen comes up and says, your vote has been counted, and an American flag comes up. Well, I went over to the desk, and I talked to the ladies and the men running, and I said, hey, how do we know that machine counted our ballot right? And there was kind of like a dead thud of silence. And then
sort of that says, deer in the headlight look, huh?
Yeah, and one of the ladies says, well, it just does, But see, these folks are not the problem. They're your neighbors who are just there to help.
They're doing a legitimate job. They're there to help.
But they haven't thought it through. Like
no.
It was in the movie Wag the Dog. At one point, Robert De Niro says they're nice people. They just haven't thought it through. In fact, Bill, while we're except for you and me in Cincinnati anyway, and I know your radio show and stuff goes all over the world, but in Cincinnati in all these years, you and I are the only two public figures who have been willing to talk about this. I'm wondering why, for instance, Simon Lease, the sheriff, who I believe is a good man, he wants his jail passed, and some people don't want it. Nobody's worried about the count. No candidate is ever worried about the count, even when there's computer breakdown. I don't understand. I don't understand how so many intelligent people across the United States and here in Cincinnati all are willing to take this on blind faith.
It just doesn't make sense.
And people think, I always say, the biggest problem we have on this issue is I know people listening may be thinking, This can't be true. The Democrats are watching the Republicans.
No.
The Republicans are watching the
No.
Democrats. I'm telling you, they both just handed over to the computer program given to them by this particular whatever company they're using, and they're not watching anything. And the people that sign the results have no idea whether it's true or false. And the whole idea is like all throughout the first 180 years of our country, you don't hide the ballots from the people. They do that in totalitarian states and tin-horn dictatorships. In this country, free people see their ballots and count their ballots. And this is not just a theoretical thing. Of course, we're all theoretically for honest elections. But as you know, if Hillary or Romney or Giuliani get elected, quote unquote, then I think we're in for more terror attacks, more and attempts to make more martial law or more police state moves in this country. We're in for more war in the Middle East. Everyone now knows the Iraq War was under phony pretenses, but now they're talking about attacking Iran. And so you have a candidate like Ron Paul, or you have a few other candidates that aren't so-called front runners, but whether they win or whether Hillary or Romney wins, now I'm talking for myself here, this has nothing to do with a lawsuit, is a big deal. I mean, this determines the future of the world. So there's trillions of dollars at stake worldwide, and there's every incentive in my opinion, for these four computer companies to have a motive to fix the elections, to keep the power, the current ruling elite going.
Well, it still seems kind of a sketchy thing. We're looking at voter fraud tonight with my guest, Jim Condon. It's really difficult. The number 381-3838, jump in. There's lines open here. If you've got a question about voting. Again, the question comes up, how will I know if my vote got counted the way I want it to? You won't.
Yeah, well,
it's that simple.
Yeah,
is there any other explanation for that? I'll tell you before we do that, let's take a pause, Jim, before you answer that. We'll come right back with Jim's answer. Is there any way to really know? I don't know. We'll find out when we come right back. Stick around. We got more to do. And your phone calls, get in right now. Hey, a quick note here from some of the people who were kind enough tonight to supply the crew with pizza. CC Pizza on, I guess it's Springdale Road in Northgate did a fine job, and I got to tell you, it's gone. Good pizza. If you're out there, you want good pizza, that's a good place to get it. Let's go to the telephones. Let's first talk to Annette. You're on the air, dear.
Yes, dear. I have a whole lot of problems with my country because I love it.
Well.
And I would like to say, I would like to know how we can take back our country, and I think I'm answering my own question when I quote, it's probably not a direct quote, Thomas Jefferson said a country needs a good revolution every 200 years, and we're sick of it. There are so many people, new people listening to you. Who in the heck can we vote for?
Hang on.
How can we do it?
All right, Annette, thank you, dear. Appreciate it. Jim, what do you think?
Well, you know, it's very hard for good candidates, I mean, people that are not rich, I should say, to run for office these days at the national level. She's asking a question. Again, this is separate because the lawsuit is for everybody. We don't care who, if we're going to have an election, we just want it to be an honest count, and that's why we want to count it in the open. But, I mean, if she's asking me, who I believe that Congressman Ron Paul is the best candidate running, and he's got 30 years record of not voting for tax increases, always voting constitutionally, and so I would urge people to vote for him. We're just trying to get him and everybody else a fair count with this lawsuit and with some of the other things we're doing.
Tomorrow, here on WBQC, we'll have Lincoln Ware at 10 o'clock, and he's going to have on the local city council candidates who are running for office, who apparently have decided to come on in a group, and you'll be able to quiz them and talk to them. See, Jim, I think this is the kind of shows we got to have.
Yes, yes.
And find out what, and don't talk about, you know, gee, you got a nice suit on or you look good. I want to hear somebody talk to me about the issues. I want to know, I know what the issues are. I want you to tell me how you're going to fix them.
That's right, yeah. Well, this is the thing, the sound bites in that are not helpful. And then I hear a lot of the discussion on the presidential race. They'll say, oh, Hillary really had a good line there. That was a funny joke by Romney. Well, this is not have nothing to do with the presidency or the country.
Or the other thing is they get up and they start talking, well, look how much money he's raised.
Exactly, yeah, that type of thing. When a lot of this money is coming in from the Wall Street crowd and the network who are kind of on the end, you know, they're all talented people, but there's about 500 key people in each in each state who can be called upon to pump money into these candidates. And you'll notice Hillary or Romney or some of these people, they have quite a large average donation because a lot of people are giving them $2,000 from the upper crust of the country.
Sure.
Ron Paul's average donation is $40. I know when Buchanan ran, his average donation was about $50, and they're not getting the big money. And there's others, I'm sure, that Ralph Nader, I think, had donations from the people.
Hang on, Jim. We're going to go to call here. Hang on a second here. Let's go to Gordon. You're on the air, sir.
Gordon, yeah, I was sort of concerned about this jail. We don't want the jail. The majority of people don't want the jail.
Now, wait a minute. Are you in Hamilton County,
yes,
sir? Oh, okay, fine.
I'm in Hamilton County.
Uh-huh.
And even the two county commissioners decide we're going to get a jail one way or another, and I'm not exactly appreciative of the fact that Jim Conduit has a good word for Simon Lease.
Okay, well, all right, stick around. We appreciate your call, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Jim, what do you think?
Well, I think Simon Lease has been a good sheriff, and he's on the jail. I hear pros and cons on it, and
everybody wants it, but nobody wants it in their backyard.
Yeah. I don't really have a strong opinion on the jail one way or the other, honestly. But I do.
Nor do I. I don't have one on.
I hear. To some extent, you have. I need to know. Some people say there's a lot of pork barrel money packed in it. Some people say there isn't. All I said was Simon Lease is a good man, and I think that the same is the case with other office holders. My only point is no one in the last 30 years, with the exception that I know of, that's at least a quasi-public figure, I've run for office, you're on the radio, but you and me has expressed even a concern about this that I'm aware of. The late John Miralacina, the councilman, he one time had me down in his office for a private meeting because he was concerned about the vote, and he was worried that he was maybe going to be vote frauded out. But he's the only one that ever was willing even to meet in private about it in the last 30 years. So my point is, whether this fellow, the man who just called in, Gordon, I think, he wants to make sure that we get a fair count. He says everybody's against the jail. Well, if it comes out on Tuesday night that the jail has passed, he's just taking it on blind faith. We don't know whether then it passed or whether the people...
We have no way of counting.
No way of knowing if they warp the vote in the computers. And somebody might say, well, hey, can't you ask for a recount? Yeah. The recount is 21 days later, about 3% of the precincts. You have to specify the precincts in advance. If I was a crook, I wouldn't need 3 weeks to switch the ballots to make the computer come.
I could switch them in 5 minutes.
There you go.
Jim, stay right there. Put you on hold. We'll come right back after this. We'll take a pause in the action. And I want to thank again all those people with that pizza out there, CC Pizza. I'm still trying to get mine. We'll be right back after this. Don't you go away. Good evening. Bill Bosch here in the Scizone tonight. If you're just joining us, my guest is Lincoln Wares tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Jim Condit's my guest tonight, talking about voter fraud, the possibility of it. Can it happen here in Hamilton County? I don't. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's go to Sam on line 2. Sam, you're there, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, I was trying to find out what government officials gave these 4 companies the proxy of the voters.
Good question. Good question. Let's see if we get an answer from Jim here. Thank you.
The answer to that is this. Since 1973, both the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee, because the Republicans and Democrats, or one or the other, controls all 3,142 counties in all 50 states. The Secretary of State is either a Democrat or Republican in all 50 states. So we have a massive thing here where the 2 major parties have coerced, arm-twisted, convinced, cajoled, whatever, the 50 Secretary of States and all the county leaders to delegate the authority to count our votes to these 4 companies. So it's a mind-boggling situation. Again, if you had, let's say, 300 companies that were being delegated the authority, you could at least say, well, there's some diffusion of responsibility. When this is from The Nation magazine of 1996, an article by Ronnie Duggar, who's looked into this for about 20 years himself. He's an older gentleman who was around in the time of the Kennedy-Nixon race, and he wrote some key articles back then about the Kennedy-Nixon race, but he's still around, and he said that 96% of our vote, 96% of the counties are delegated to just these 4 companies. And another thing that people might find of interest, the Secretary of State of California, Deborah Bowen, who I'm sure is going to come under a lot of pressure, in July, late July of this year, 2007, she decertified all 4 companies in California. Now, they're using them this Tuesday, but after that, she's decertified them, and that was based on the study of the University of California.
Exactly, I heard about that. That's going to be a landmark situation.
Yeah, and we now, since we have sued California as well, they may be, Deborah Bowen anyway, may be glad, because now she can point that we're pointing out exactly what she pointed out, that there's no real checks and balances on these companies on Election Day, and by the time the people can get at some of the ballots 3 weeks later, they could have been switched. And there are cases, like in Cleveland in 2004, Diebold officials were caught on Saturday in the Cleveland Board of Elections with Cleveland officials, still not specified what they're doing, but some Cleveland officials have been sentenced to jail for that, although I don't know that they've served any time. I think it's
probably not. Hang on, Jim. We'll get another call in here. I want you really to go to Google and look up the website we talked about. This is fascinating stuff, man. And this is not me saying this. These are people all over the United States, just like Jim Condon and just like you, getting involved and saying, wait a minute, this isn't right. A woman in Seattle, I forget her name, it's in the movie. Bless her heart, she just discovered it and said, wait a minute, this won't work. The number 381-3838, jump in when somebody hangs up. Let's go to, I believe it's Daryl. You're on the air, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to compliment Lieutenant Colonel Simon Lease for a great job that he's done. And I say that because I served with him in Vietnam, and he has been a bright and shining star. I know a lot of people don't like him, but then when you're a Marine, you're doing what you're supposed to do, won't nobody like you.
That's a fact.
And John he's absolutely correct on the California situation. And Diebold, let me tell you, there's going to be more mess on this voter thing than anybody would ever believe. I
want you to be sure and watch Lincoln Ware in the morning, okay?
Okay.
Very important. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Let's go to, who's there? Let's go to Eric. Eric, you're on the air.
How you doing, Jim?
Doing well, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple comments. It seems like the American voters have some type of memory lapse going on because when George W. became president, and it was proven that some of the ballots down in Florida were lost, destroyed, whatever, in his brother's district, okay, how Gore actually ran for president and was president, counted in as president, but all of a sudden there's a glitch in the matrix and now Bush is president. Okay, it seems like everyone's forgetting that this process, this voting process, has been crooked for a long time.
Long time. Eric, let me ask you this. Do you feel confident about the local election that's going to happen Tuesday?
As far as for the jail?
I don't care what it's for. They're going to be a vote. Or do you feel like it's going to be safe?
Oh, no, sir. Not at all. I have no confidence in anything that's ran by this government.
Boy, that's an interesting point.
Basically, that has the proven record is that even though we may want everything to be right, the proven record is that we've always been, you know.
Eric, the record is they're going to lie, cheat, and steal to get any damn tell you any damn thing they want, so they can get your vote.
Right, exactly.
And then they do. Well, I couldn't get it through. They voted me down. Hoo-hoo. Anyway, thank you, Eric. I appreciate the call, sir. Thank you.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
One more thing to you. Okay, about the new jail being built.
Yeah.
Why haven't someone stood up and said, look, all that money that they're going to use to build that jail, why haven't they said, well, here, we're going to start outside programs of prevention, you know what I'm saying? Why haven't someone stood up and said, we have something for, you know, for that, somewhere else for that money to go? Because the judicial system has always been interlaced with prevention.
Okay.
However, there's certain companies or organizations within the judicial system already that has a monopoly on those things, like the Talbot House.
Yeah.
They have monopolies. Why not put that money to good use out in the inner cities and out in the outer line?
Good point, Eric. I got to run, but I appreciate your call, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, what do you think?
I wanted to you were bringing up some, Bev Harris was the lady's name in Seattle, and
yes.
I wanted to mention there's now a lot of computer scientists who devote their life to computers who are saying the same things that you and I and a lot of others, Bev Harris, have been saying. Dr. David Dill of Stanford University, DILL, Dr. Rebecca Mercury in Pennsylvania is at, I can't remember the name, it's a women's college. Dr. Avi Rubin is at Princeton University.
You know, Jim, it would be so bad if you and I had just suddenly come on the scene and started talking about this. You made a good point. It was in 1995, 94, 95, you and I started talking.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, we're the only one asking the question.
Well, that's the odd thing, because I know that if you take the average businessman, clergyman, office holder, lawyer,
they just go along with it.
I mean, we are, admittedly, we're looking at this and they maybe aren't, but once they hear the issue, I know that most of them are more intelligent than me. I'm not twice as intelligent than they are than you are. But no one's asking the question. I don't care whether you're for the jail or against the jail. You are at the mercy of who's ever running that computer.
See, that's the point tonight.
Yeah,
we're going to get what somebody else wants, not your vote.
If the opportunity is from there for those running the computer program to switch the result.
Here's my point. If there's nothing wrong with it, why not show it to us?
Exactly.
Show us the operating system and allow the computer scientists to come in and evaluate it. And if you don't want to do that, shame on you, because that tells me, oh, hold on, time out. I want somebody who will do that.
That's right. That's right.
We're going to take a pause in the action. Come right back with your phone calls. Jim Condit, my guest. Stick around. We got more to do, and you're a part of it. Don't you forget tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Lincoln Ware is going to be here with the guys.
Dig.
Bill Boshear's back in the Scizone on Saturday night, WBQC, right here. My guest, Jim Condit. Jim, thank you for being here tonight.
Sure.
Let's go right back to the phones, and we'll get to Thomas and Michael and Sandy and the thousands of others waiting to get in. We'll get to them just as soon as we can. Let's go to Thomas. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you, Bill?
Doing well, sir. Thank you for being there.
Two things. I want to mention the jail, and then I have a comment on Hillary. On the jail, I believe the jail is not going to be any bigger. They're just going to take the money and waste it on programs that for these drug addicts that will not stay off of drugs, and I believe that's where the money's going to go. They're going to build a jail, but it's not going to be no bigger. Then they'll waste the money on these programs where people, that aren't going to change your life. You know, it's a liberal.
What should we do with them? I mean, what should happen to these people?
Okay. I'm glad you asked that. This is my comment, not your comment, not your station's comment. This is my comment. Whether you're white, black, brown, yellow, or red, you should be taken out and put somewhere in a concentration camp in some place down in Indiana away from society. That's what I believe they should do with them people.
All right. I appreciate your call, sir. Thank you. Jim, you have a comment on that?
I didn't know. The people of Indiana might be a little bit...
I'm afraid Indiana's going to really get urinated off at us for that kind of stuff.
Might be bummed out that they're not part of civilization. I would say I do. In fact, I've talked to some people in the jail system, and some people think if someone like is selling heroin or cocaine, these drugs that ruin people's lives forever, or crack, I should say, heroin or crack, and that they, after the third time, they should be given capital punishment because they ruin people's lives. And then if they're users...
You mean that literally like 3 strikes you're dead?
I guess so. I don't know. Yeah, that was the idea, because they're ruining people's lives. But then the main thing, though, is that instead of having the guys that are in there, many of them are users or they've done some minor, well, I shouldn't say minor crime, but they've done a felony that maybe wasn't life-threatening or something. Instead of letting them watch cable TV and...
the guy out in Arizona has got the perfect idea.
He makes it very, so it isn't pleasant, but I would also train them, let them pick plumbing or an honest trade and a good trade, and try to train these guys so when they get out, they got a way to make a living. That's the problem with a lot of them.
I got a better idea. Let's put them in the Army and let them deal with it.
That's not a bad idea either.
If you don't want to go, then...
Yeah.
There's not much alternative.
They need to be trained. Yeah, trained while they're in there so they don't come out and have no way to make a living is my thought on it. Anyway.
Stay right there, Michael. Or Jim, we'll come to Michael. You're line 2. You're on the air.
How you doing?
Go ahead, sir.
Hey, I know how to end the problem.
Oh, dear.
That guy was in the Army. He says just go over to Columbia and start over there.
Whatever that means. I'm not sure I know what that means. Let's go to Sandy. Sandy, thank you for standing by.
Yes.
Yes, you're on the air.
Okay, I got a question on comment of everything you have said so far.
Oh, okay.
As far as this election and that.
Uh-huh.
My comment is about this money and everything. You know how they do these drug busters and everything?
Yeah.
And they get the money and stuff like that. Where does all that money go?
It stays with the police department or the sheriff's department that picks it up.
But what I'm saying is how they come up with all these things that us taxpayers pay for things for dirt on the streets and stuff like that.
Well, you don't understand, Sandy. We had to have a football stadium.
Okay, like the government and stuff, right?
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you, Sandy. I think we have a big football stadium. Nothing against football, nothing against baseball. But we spent a lot of money that could probably have been spent better, but gee, that's over and done with, isn't it? And we had a lot of input on that. Just like you're going to have a lot of input on the vote, you're going to get to vote, and you think it makes sense. We have no way of making sure that our votes count. Well, if it comes out and they happen to win, that's fine. But if it doesn't, you got a problem. Is that right, Jim?
Hey, that's right, and everyone who is listening and calls in cares about things
absolutely
deeply, so they all need to join us in calling for an open count at each precinct, and the people should be paid at each precinct.
Absolutely.
The government can find money for, if some people are saying, what's all this money going for? They find money for everything they want. In fact, Bill, for $48 billion, which is what we spent in the first 8 months or so in Iraq, $48 billion, we could pay people, 12 people at each neighborhood voting place all over the United States for the next 60 years to count the vote in the open. So that would give citizens some money. It would allow people to all participate, and the ones that didn't get the job that year could watch the others. And it would be an open count and would know for sure who wins and what issues pass on each election. So this is very doable, but those running the state and county and federal government act like they just can't find any money to count.
Let me tell you something. People will volunteer to count that.
Well, that's true. Many people will. That's right.
Why wouldn't you, this is something to think about, why wouldn't you give WBQC a feed right over the computer. I'll come in, I'll volunteer. Jim, you can come down with me. We'll put a board up, and we will watch the elections and count it with them.
Sure.
And you bring it in, bring the ballots here, we count them right in front of the television camera.
Well, that's a good point with cameras.
Now that we've got the whole community watching, and we bring them in, and we put chairs in here, and people sit and count them. He said, well, that would be boring. Well, it would be honest, wouldn't it?
It would be, and nobody...
Or do the same thing down at the voting headquarters and put video cameras and allow the country to watch and have the toggle switch here at the station, and I can go to any precinct I want and watch them count.
That's a great idea.
I can do it over the internet right now. I've got the technology right now.
Yeah.
This is not, this is not some satellite crap. This is right here, right now in Cincinnati. Why can't we see that?
Well, that would be the way to go, and then and I contend then elections would be real and exciting again.
I'd like to, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Have a party. We'll take a break. We'll have a party here. I'm going to eat some more pizza if I can find it. Somebody got my pizza. Anyway, I'll be right back with more in your phone calls. Hey, I like that show. I like that commercial. That's got a lot of self-interest in it, doesn't it? I mean, you just get it out. Kind of like, I like that. Anyway, let's go to the phones with my guest tonight, Jim Condon. Jim, I want to thank you for being here all night long with us. Appreciate it. Let's go to Mark. You're on the air with Jim Condon. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. There was a comment made about drug dealing and drug users.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up in a community where there were a lot of drugs going on. And one thing I've always learned is the best way to get rid of drugs is to rob the profit from the drug dealers.
Okay. How would you suggest how we go about doing that?
Well, how did the United States government do it when Prohibition happened?
Oh, I guess you want to legalize heroin and cocaine and the rest of it. Hey, that's a good story. I appreciate it. Thank you. I don't think it'll fly, but let's go to Thelma. Are you there, dear? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, are you there, Thelma?
Yes, hi, this is Robin.
I'm sorry, Robin. Didn't mean to do that to you. Go ahead.
Okay, Bill, how are you doing this
I'm doing phenomenally well. I just wrote the numbers the wrong place.
Oh, that's okay. Hey, one thing I think that the problem is we've become so complacent in this country, and we sit back and believe it when the government tells us that the computers are perfect.
Oh, or they tell us, here's one, they have weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
Or, they could be creating a bomb. We don't know just where it is, but our information tells us it's there.
Right.
Robin, you got a great point.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Good night.
Good night, dear. What do you think about that, Jim?
Well, I think she's right. The founding fathers were skeptical. They urged us to love the country, but to be skeptical of the government. That's the attitude of the founding fathers. And for anyone that's been listening, and we appreciate you airing this subject, Bill, throughout the hour, if they go to votefraud.org, then there's a few articles on the homepage that'll give them some basic.
Absolutely.
And then if they hit the archive, it'll link to all these scientists and the other websites like blackboxvoting.org, Dr. David Dill. It links them into all the scientists and all the websites, which there's tons of now about.
Folks, it's bigger than Watergate.
Oh, it is. It is.
It's bigger than Watergate ever thought about being.
No,
it's corrupt from the bottom up.
Yeah. There's two books out on this so far, Black Box Voting by Bev Harris.
Right.
The earlier one, Vote Scam, The Stealing of America, and that really says it all, the title to that book.
Really does. Stay right there, Jim. Let's go to, we'll try this way. Let's try. I'll bet this is Thelma. Thelma, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Let's try. I'll bet this is Thelma. Thelma, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, you're listening to your television. Turn it off and listen.
I turned it off.
Okay. Look, when you call, turn your television off. Don't talk to me on the phone. There's a difference. The television is a screen sitting over here. This is a telephone. Just pick it up and forget about the telephone. Talk to me. Let's go to Jim on line 2. Jim, you're there.
All right, Bill. I got my TV down. I'm with you.
Go for it, brother.
I had a comment on your jail tax issue earlier.
Okay.
One thing, I think, on the front end, you're never going to get over. It doesn't matter how many jails they build. The way the system is set up, they keep letting a bunch of criminals out that keep circulating through the system. So it doesn't matter how many jails there are. They're going to let some creeps out, and they might pick on you or us for this or that. But
I had a former brother-in-law killed by a hit-and-run guy. We don't have enough people to even look it up.
They don't even keep track of who's out
they don't
on
care.
house arrest, right?
They're busy. They're busy. They're just busy.
On the back end, I have a solution. You can kill two birds with one stone.
Hit it.
Get a crime deterrent by saying, look, if you're going to be a serious offender, say a capital offender, as it is now, then instead of death penalty or anything like that, you're going to be subjected to medical research.
Absolutely. Good place to be.
Hey. And you will benefit humanity by having medical experiments done that will help us learn more about how we can solve some...
That's a good thing. I never thought of that. It's a good thing. I got to run them up against it, but I appreciate your call, brother. Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Jim Condon, thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's votefraud.org. Go there, Jim Condon. Thank you for being here. Join me again, will you?
Thank you. I appreciate you airing the issue. See you.
You got it, brother. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We're here every Saturday night, and there's a couple lines open. I'll take the calls after we go off the air. In the meantime, listen. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., Lincoln Ware is going to be doing public affairs. Listen to it. Get in, listen, call and ask these candidates. Talk to them. Find out how they're going to solve the problems of our community. We have to live here, and so do you. Take care. Stay safe. And we'll see you next week right here in the Scizone. I'm Bill Boshears. Have a great weekend. What's left of it, we'll see you next week. And I'm definitely...